Hi, Song, happy opening day.
Happy opening day. It's one of the best days of the year.
This is just, if it should, first of all, it should be a national holiday, but we've got the whole entire baseball season ahead of us starting today.
This is
And
great.
I'm just so excited. And one of Interpretation's biggest baseball fans is Sam Ham, and we're going to talk to Sam Ham all about baseball and only a tiny bit about interpretation later on in this episode. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, me too. So, well, first of all, welcome to the S&P. We got so excited about opening day of baseball. We don't
Right,
even
right,
tell
right,
you who we
right.
are. So, welcome to the S&P. I am Song. I'm the event and engagement manager for the National Association for Interpretation. And this is
This is with you as always. I'm Paul. I'm NAI's deputy director and noted Phillies fan. I see that you're wearing Red Sox gear today.
oh
That's your
yeah,
team, I guess.
always.
Yeah. Okay. The Boston Red Sox. I'm a okay with the Red Sox. But happy opening day to you and to everybody, and to Sam Ham. Um, we're gonna talk baseball and interpretation. But what is going on in NAI and interpretation right now that we need to tell folks about before we talk to Sam?
Well, we're wrapping up the final days of regional workshops.
That's been
Um,
fun.
It's been super fun.
Yep.
Really good presentations all around, really good content.
Mhm.
Very well done, all
Yes.
you awesome regions.
Way to
Um,
go, regional workshop folks. The committees and the regional leadership have all done great work on there. There's still one more to go. The Sunny Southeast has theirs April 12th through 16, but otherwise, all of the others are wrapped up.
yep. And then, of course, Interp Tech. We've got Interp Tech coming. If you want to participate in the Level Up Parade, if you have a really cool new piece of tech that you're implementing in your programming or even in an exhibit at your site, please just go to our Flipgrid and submit a video because we would love to have you
Absolutely.
and register.
Also, the call for presentations for the NAI National Conference, which is going to be mostly in person in Palm Springs, California. The call for presentations is open. So we're accepting proposals for both in person and virtual presentation ideas because it's going to be a hybrid event.
Yep. Okay, so Paul, now what do we got now?
Sam Ham is a huge baseball fan, has quite a family history and a personal history with baseball, and just is just passionate about the game and what it means as both a sport and an element of American culture. And I think we should just cut right to the chase here, and let's bring in noted Seattle Mariners fan Sam Ham.
Welcome, Sam. We are so excited to have you here. Obviously, we love baseball here
Happy
on the show. Happy
happy opening day to everybody.
opening
Happy
day
opening
to
day.
everybody.
I have to. Can I start song by asking? I have to ask what you were holding up your shirt just now, Sam. What is your shirt that you're wearing?
Oh, well, now this shirt, can I start with a story?
Well, let's hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I would expect nothing less.
in 2002, I was giving the keynote address at Scotland's very first conference ever on interpretation at the Edinburgh Botanical Garden. And as part of that presentation, I talked about baseball. And my whole point was that I'm an expert in baseball and they're not, right? And if I were going to interpret baseball for them, right, by taking them to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, right, I would not expect the exhibits in the Hall of Fame Museum in Cooperstown would speak to my needs as an expert in baseball. I studied how, the type of laces that were put in mitts, Paul, the type of mud that came out of a particular Midwest river that was rubbed on balls before they were put in play in every baseball game to this day, those sorts of arcane anal baseball facts. And so I said, but fortunately, I'm not the audience. You're the audience because you know nothing about baseball. Right. And if I were going to tell you to give you an impression of this foreign thing that is not very interesting to you, right, I would do it by telling you about the importance of the sport of baseball in the evolution of American culture. and in many ways in its impact on the American psyche, how important it was during World War II, for example, when many of the greats were overseas fighting with our troops, how the game of baseball, including the women's league, happened at that time, and baseball became sort of our the one good thing we could always look forward to. And it's also probably unique among sports because it is a game that anybody can play, and it's a game where I know, at least in our family, one time 5 generations were in the backyard at Barbara's parents' home in Long Beach, Washington. There were the great grandparents, there was the grandparents, mom and dad, the grandchildren and the great grandchildren, all in a baseball game, though I think grandpa was more of a designated umpire than a player, or great grandpa, right? And so there aren't many sports that you can say that about. And so this, in this presentation, I referenced that someday, this is 2002, I want to make a pilgrimage, is what I called it, to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. I'd never been there, right? And I said, that's on my bucket list. I said, before I die. Well, as it turns out, in 2019, that dream became a reality when Edgar Martinez was, at long last and long overdue, inducted into the Hall of Fame as the first designated hitter. In fact, you may know the designated hitter award is named the Edgar Martinez Award, right? And so this was a trip that I made with my son. We had a pact we would do it when Edgar was inducted. Yeah.
Well, so that is, first of all, I'm very glad for all Mariners fans, of which you are one, that Edgar Martinez finally got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm reminded of the first time we met at an NAI regional workshop, the Northwest Region Workshop in North Bend.
Correct, Washington.
North Bend, Washington, not North Bend, Oregon, as I almost just said. You were the keynote speaker for about 20 people at like a YMCA camp in North Bend, Washington. And I was new to NAI, and I was wearing a Phillies cap, possibly even this Phillies cap. And you said, baseball fan. And that has started now nearly 20 years of the two of us getting to talk baseball, every time we see each other. We've been to a Tacoma Rainiers game together. I'll put that photo on this, as I'm editing. I'm curious to know where, here it is. It's behind you. and there's Region 7 Director AJ Klebnik over your left shoulder. That was the afternoon. You can see AJ and I both ran the Seattle Rock and Roll Half Marathon that day, and then we went to a Tacoma Rainiers game that night.
Can you believe that song? Man runs a half marathon, then goes to a Rainiers game with me. Which was a 30-mile drive, by the way.
Beer has a recuperative power, so it was the Rainier bar there was quite the experience. And so anyhow, yeah, so obviously you and I are both baseball fans. Song is a baseball fan. One of my favorite things about Song, when she was applying to the NAI job, we were checking out her various sites and social media and whatnot, and sure enough, there's pictures of Song at baseball games, and I'm like, Song is the events manager for us. So I'm curious to know, Sam, where everyone knows you as Mr. Interpretation, but how did you become Mr. Baseball in your non-interpretation life?
I didn't become a fan. I think I was born one. Baseball has been a part of my life since my earliest memories. Literally eat, drink, sleep baseball 12 months a year. My first go at competitive baseball, I thought was age 8, but it turns out it was age 7, and I was on a little league team. I was technically not old enough, but they put me on the team, and I don't think I played one inning, but I was on the team. But beginning at age 8, I was a player, and I played for 37 or 38 consecutive years. And I grew up a Yankees fan. As a child, I knew I can still name them. I can name every player in the 1961 Yankees, name every player and number.
Yeah. I'm sorry, this interview's over now.
I'm learning a lot of things about it.
But I've got to tell you why. And the reason is that at that time, NBC, the NBC network, was broadcasting the game of the week, and they had contracts with just a few teams. And the Phillies was one of them, by the way, Paul. I used to, that's how I, became, interested in the Phillies way back when. And they weren't very good in those days. So they were kind of, that was, they weren't as much fun to watch. They would be a lot more fun now. But the
Well, they're the
Yankees were
first
on almost
professional.
every weekend.
The Phillies are the first professional franchise to 10,000 losses.
Yeah. Well, I think the Mariners are going to catch them.
I didn't mean to interrupt your story, Sam.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
go
all
ahead.
right. But the Yankees were on almost every weekend. And so those are the guys we were watching. And so when we went out in the yard and played, those are the guys we pretended to be. And my brother and I and our two best friends who lived across the street, all roughly the same age. So I was the youngest, which meant I was the one that got tortured and beat up most often and teased. We played baseball constantly. And so we bought, I still have, my son has them, but some unopened Topps baseball cards from the 1960s. It was still the bad bubble gum inside of them, which probably is dust now, but they're still
I think you should
unopened.
try
Paul.
to chew it.
They're still unopened. Well, I don't think they'll ever be opened. I think it's a wonderful thing. But that's the way we were. So baseball wasn't something I sort of grew into. Baseball was something that sort of became a part of me at a very young age and a big part of my personal identity, to the point that it became a theme for our family. All of it. We, my family, Barbara, my wife of 50 years in July, and our son Jared and daughter Allison have spent many thousands of hours on baseball fields.
Sam, I have to ask you, you said it was a theme for your family. Was it a theme or a topic?
It's a topic, but I tell you what, it's a theme title.
Okay, I like
Baseball.
it. I like it.
Now this is a replica of the brick that my family had put as I think a Father's Day present to me back in 1999. Dead center field. And there are hundreds of these that people paid to have their commemorative bricks put in. And this is for our family. It was directly behind where Griffey patrolled center field, and that's why they chose that location. And so that's how important this sport is in our life. And speaking of the Mariners, Paul, you can tell I have some selected stuff, and believe me, I have a lot more than I'm going to show you. It's a photograph of Ken Griffey Jr. sliding across home plate. This is at the Kingdome. It's the 7th game, I think the 11th inning of the final game of the American League Division Series with the New York Yankees. We came to Seattle down 2-0. And so all the Yankees have to do is win 1 out of 3 at Seattle now. And we bought a strip, and so we had two seats to all these games in the Kingdome. And I was on my way back from somewhere in South America. I was trying to remember. I think it was Patagonia, maybe. And I got as far as Seattle when the games were going to start in the Kingdome, and I had 2 tickets. I called the University of Idaho and said, "I'm sorry, but I know I'm just 1 flight away from being back in the classroom, but I'm not coming until the Mariners lose." and they said, "Okay." And I had my classes covered and all that. Don't worry about that. But so I stayed with relatives in the Seattle area, and I went to all the games. I met Peter Gammon. They had a nice chat every morning outside the Kingdome. All these news guys were there and stuff, and I met lots of players, and including Yankees, and went to these games. Now this was the final game, and Barbara came over. Whoever got the second ticket changed depending on who could come over. Barb drove over from Idaho, and she and I were at this final game together. To go back to the photograph, in the bottom, I think it was the bottom of the 11th. It was an extra inning game. I should have checked that so I knew. And it was off of Blackjack Rogers. Both he and Randy Johnson had to come out of the bullpen because the game lasted so long, right? And Randy ended up being the winning pitcher in the series. In the bottom, Griffey is on with 1 out. Griffey's on first. Edgar bats behind him. Edgar hit to what this day anybody in Seattle will tell you is referred to as the double. A screaming shot down the left field line. Griffey with his speed rounded. There's no way he was stopping, and he slid across home plate. And in this photograph, you're going to see a guy running out of the dugout with a warm-up jacket on. That's a young Alex Rodriguez. That's A-Rod when he was a rookie with the Mariners running out.
Holy smokes.
And anyway, this slide isn't just because we won the game. This slide is why we're having this conversation, me with this hat on right now, because it's what saved baseball in Seattle. It was on the chopping block. It was on the selling block, right? And the legislature of Washington had to pass a major initiative to build Safeco Field, right? And keep baseball in Seattle. And this is a huge deal. And it was because of the excitement that the Mariners' victory in the ALDS in 1995 caused that they went back to Olympia, where we live today, and took a vote on it and passed almost unanimously. So,
because of that slide.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the story about the slide. So,
so Sam, today, April 1st, is the opening day for Major League Baseball. Whoop, whoop. How do you and your family celebrate?
I wish I could say that, we buy champagne, we organize a party, we have a little parade. But the fact is, for the last great many years, I've been working all over the planet, and I'm often out of the country on opening day, and more so than being here actually. And so it hasn't always been possible to have a celebration, but I do commemorate it. And wherever I am, if that country has a channel that would show a Major League Baseball game in the U.S., and opening day might be one of them because it's opening day, like ESPN Deportes if I'm in Latin America somewhere, or ESPN in Australia where I work a lot sometimes. But it's an ungodly hour. But so what I have tried to do is always, wherever I am, watch the first pitch of any game I can get on. Now, tonight, opening day, the Mariners have the home opener. The home opener is always the best, isn't it? Rather for your real opening day is your home opener. A home opener, every fan knows that. And it's tonight at 7:00 against the Giants. So yes, I will have a little sip of something and watch. Maybe a big sip. and watch.
How many games do they play in a regular season? It's a lot. So if you miss opening day, it's okay.
I think it's true that opening day is special because it is the day where every true fan of every team has the greatest hope for the season. It doesn't get any higher than opening day. We've been saying for a whole winter, wait till next year. And now next year has come and it's called opening day. And so that's why it is a day worthy of mention, of asking me about, and it's a day worthy of celebration if one is in a position to be able to celebrate.
Well, and Sam and I have watched, it wasn't opening day, it was the World Series. We watched together the 2017 World Series,
right,
when the Astros were cheating their way to a win over the Dodgers.
Yeah.
We watched that. We were speaking with our friends from Interpat MX, Antonietta and Manuel.
And we were in Mexico City. I don't think
we were in Mexico City, and we were watching it broadcast in Spanish, and we're basically the four of us in the bar, this little tiny bar, watching the World Series together, and that
sipping tequila and chasing with a beer.
That was not too bad. But so interpreters, obviously, we talk about tangibles and intangibles, and we've talked a lot about the intangibles already. But baseball fans love tangible things. I've got my helmet Sundays behind me. I mean, we all have. God, I mean, is there anything better than getting a foul ball at a game? I mean, that's,
I got one.
You got one?
Well, I remember I texted you that very day. It was off Miguel Sano. It was a screaming line drive, and I was a part of a corporate thing with my son's company. He sells wine, by the way, so it turned out it's really a nice arrangement we have. And I'm in the absolute upper deck, the last row of seats before you leave the stadium.
Yep.
And this ball was still a line drive. When it hit next to me, literally in the seat next to me, I was the only one sitting there.
Yeah.
And it wedged between the two seats. And I pulled it out. And the next thing I knew, there was a staff member running up to me with a little card. saying it's actually in the photo behind me. You'll see that baseball there?
Yep.
That's my
Yep.
foul ball.
That's your foul
And there's a
ball.
little card. There's a little
Uh,
card in front of it. So
but you shared some photos. I know that you have some baseballs that were autographed, and we'll make this the last question because there's baseball to watch and ice cream to eat.
I grew up a Yankees fan, but that has nothing to do with who these balls are from, because the first three, I have four I'm going to quickly show you, are from Yankees. The first is signed by Joe DiMaggio. One other thing. I was not there to personally get any of these balls from the great player who signed it. Somebody got them in my behalf because they knew of my love for the game. And this one came from my brother. This was from Italian Night. There's an Italian club in Seattle, Washington. And for years, even to this day, whenever the Yankees are in Seattle for the 3-game series with the Mariners, the Italian club of Seattle gathers with great players. Dom DiMaggio and Joe DiMaggio were both together when this ball was signed by Joe, along with Phil Rizzuto. And then they have other great Yankees too from the past. But anyway, this one was signed by Joe. And what I like about it is that my brother got it for me. Joe started to sign it with a pen that obviously didn't work. And so he threw that pen down and picked up a marker. So you see actually two J's, one with a little scrawled ink and the other with a more prominent. The second one is from the only Yankee pitcher, and in fact, the only pitcher in Major League history who ever threw a perfect game in the World Series, Don Larson. Any baseball fan knows the photograph of Yogi with his legs wrapped around Don Larson on the mound after the last pitch and all that. So anyway, this was from a colleague of mine who was a CEO of a forest science consulting company that was golfing with Don Larson in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho in 1987. And had the ball. It says to Sam, which I like. The one from Joe DiMaggio doesn't, but this one says to Sam, and which makes it totally worth nothing, which is what I want, because we're not going to sell these anyway. This one is signed by two more Yankee greats. One of them a Hall of Famer. In fact, I was at his induction with Edgar in 2019. Mariano Rivera, along with Ramiro Mendoza, who were both relief pitchers. Of course, Mariano was the closer. And this ball was signed in a baseball stadium in Panama City when Mariano and Ramiro were there working out one day. We had arranged for them. I was working a lot in Panama in those days on a Panama Canal watershed soil conservation project. And they had agreed to shoot a promo for us because the audience was Panamanians. And who better to do that? And my tickets were bought months before this was set up, but the shoot date had to be the date that they were available. And I arrived the day after. And so my friends, my colleagues with the Academy for Educational Development, who was a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. that hired me, right, had this ball signed for me. And it says, to Sam Ham, from Mariano Rivera and Ramiro Mendoza.
Okay,
and then
Mariano
finally,
is one of the only Yankees that I do like. He is a machine. He is a closing robot. He
is. And his life story, if you've read his book, his life story will touch your heart. His life revolved around the love of this girl that he grew up with and the difficulties he had being away from her and learning English. When you know this about his man, his humility is real and authentic, and you can't help but love him. So even though he's an arch rival. And then finally, this ball is compliments of a very famous person in the interpretation field, Dr. Larry Beck at San Diego State University. Larry's long known about my love of baseball. We often talked about the greats, but especially Tony Gwynn, arguably one of the greatest hitters, if not the greatest hitter in all of Major League history. And Tony was retired and living in San Diego, where he's from, and worked. He played for the San Diego Padres. And Larry's at San Diego State University, and Tony is helping with the baseball team, coaching it. And Larry and his department head both had gotten to know Tony over the years. And one day, Larry, just out of kindness and just great thoughtfulness, said, "I've got a colleague that really loves baseball and thinks so highly of you. Would you mind signing the ball for him?" So Tony Gwynn signed this ball, his signature, and it says HOF, Hall of Fame
Hmm.
'07. So 2007, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Larry gave me this ball, I believe it was 2012, and then Tony died 2 years later.
Yeah.
And so these are the, I have others, but this is like the the quartet of baseball, signed baseballs that matter the most to me.
We have to ask Sam because it's
Yeah,
a little known fact that you were drafted
I was.
by the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's
Nobody
correct.
knows that. Does anybody in the interpretation world know that? And you played, right? You played in the minor league system for the Cardinals for a few years.
No, for one year.
1 year. 1 year.
Yeah. Then I went to Washington State University to follow Barbara, and that was when I realized I was good enough to make $17,000 a year, ride on buses and trains, and uh, probably never advance. And it was like a Bull Durham moment for me, if you've seen
Yeah,
that movie,
for
right?
sure, for sure.
And
Everybody
and
has
uh,
seen it.
that's when I became a serious student, and that's also when I discovered interpretation. So they were my giving up. I always wanted to be a professional baseball player. That was my dream. I
Yeah.
thought I could do it, but I saw with my own eyes that I was competing with an incredible number of people, and these are superior athletes, big, strong, fast guys. I could hit a breaking ball, and that's what kept me around for that long. But I saw that it wasn't going to be my future, except a Bull Durham type future possibly. So anyway, but thanks for mentioning that.
So,
How about the
Song,
balls, real quick?
I think our headline here is that interpretation was Sam Ham's second choice.
uh,
I I think you got something there, Paul. So Sam, what sites have you visited that interpret baseball well, like museums or even bars, right? Like which are your favorite?
well, now you went from a short list to a long list. um, listen, I haven't. Paul Caputo is he's seen more than anybody alive, I'm quite sure. But I've already mentioned my experience with my son at the Baseball Hall of Fame Museum in Cooperstown, New York. One of the greatest experiences of my life, and a great father-son memory. And uh, I would say second, though, is Harry's Bar and Grill, just outside of Wrigley's Field in Chicago. Um, big Cubbies place. Harry Carey was the announcer of the Chicago Cubs for decades, and his song "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which he personally would sing at the seventh inning stretch of every game, is to this day it's a permanent part of baseball lore. It always will be, and of course the "Holy Cow," that was his phrase, "Holy cow," and of course he has a holy cow, and you can touch it right outside of the bar and grill. And I have a shirt, of course, commemorating it. But in this restaurant is the greatest collection of baseball memorabilia anywhere outside of Cooperstown, outside of the Hall of Fame. I sat and had dinner. I had a French dip sandwich, and Stan Musial's uniform was hanging in a glass case next to me,
Yep.
literally right there in my and signed balls all over the place, and photographs, and it's so those are my two. I'm sorry to say, not quite as numerous as yours, Paul, but fun and
Those are
meaningful.
those are great choices. I would only add the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, and we're gonna have Kiana Sinks, who is their digital media strategist, speaking
Cool.
at InterpTech later this month. Now that it's April 1st, and also the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory in Louisville, Kentucky. That's a really great place for a baseball
Paul,
fan.
I love your article in Legacy about your visit to the Louisville Slugger factory.
It's all another place for baseball fans to talk about tangibles and intangibles, right?
No
Like
kidding. Yeah.
it's amazing. It's
I will
amazing.
Yeah.
add to that. I'll add to that, Sam. I personally love the Cardinal Museum in St. Louis, in the baseball village there. The DeWitt family has donated most of the memorabilia,
Ah,
and you can see check stubs from players. I held Stan the Man's baseball bats. I
Wow.
mean,
oh,
it's
you're
pretty
getting into
incredible.
you're getting into sacred territory now.
I know. So what I'm thinking is we need to plan a road trip, is what I'm thinking, Sam.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So instead of
Oh.
20 minutes on a Zoom call, we could have 9 innings over a ball game. Well, this has been so much fun, Sam. Thank you so much. Song, any final thoughts for Sam as we sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game"?
Play ball.
Play ball, indeed, indeed. The great Larry Anderson, by the way, Phillies pitcher Larry Anderson said, why do we sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" when we're already there?
And with that,
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you both, Song and Paul. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Good luck to your Mariners.
Thank you to the Phillies and the Sox as well. So,
Thanks.
listen, I had no idea that Sam was that he was drafted,
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
he, and that he was such a fan. I mean, good grief.
Yeah, yeah. Nearly all of my conversations with Sam Hamm have been about baseball and not so much about interpretation, and that's how we've gotten to know each other so well. And that really, spending an afternoon with him at a ball game in Tacoma was a highlight for me. That really was a lot of fun.
Well, we've got our marching orders, right?
Mhm.
We have to figure out a game that we can
Get
all.
to a game with Sam Hamm.
Yep. So we do have some official business with
Mhm.
our executive director, Millward Simpson. So let's just bring him in.
Well, hi, Song and Paul. Great to be here, helping celebrate opening day. But Paul, I was really sad to hear the news today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I'm scared to see where this is going.
They decided to cancel the whole minor league season this year.
Not again, not again. I can't go another year without it.
Okay, so that was a lame attempt at an April
Fools.
How else am I going to build the Helmet Sunday collection?
Right? So I had to do something.
Oh, it is. It's April Fool's. That's right.
Come on, Paul. You gotta be quicker than that.
Here I am in my vintage corduroy Cubs baseball cap, which I have had for longer than I can remember.
Holy smokes, a corduroy Cubs cap. Why? So tell us about your Cubsness. Why are you a Cubs fan?
Well, always a fan of the underdog, Paul. Always a fan of the underdog. But I actually directed a really fun little show called Bleacher Bums, which is about the long-suffering, hapless Cubs fan. And I directed it for the University of Wyoming. So it was kind of a little bit of a scouting trip. I went out to Chicago with my dad. It was like 1987. He had other business out there, but took me to Wrigley Field, got to see Andre Dawson and Ryne Sandberg and Mark Grace play and just take in that whole, legendary atmosphere. It was a blast.
What a treat. Wrigley Field is truly one of the shrines of baseball. It's certainly one of the places every baseball fan has to get, and along with Song's Fenway Park there, of course.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But how about this, Paul? So here is my inaugural 1993 Colorado Rockies cap where they were playing at Mile High.
Very nice.
Now 28 years old. This was the inaugural season for the Rockies.
So cool.
That is a great ball cap right there. Well, I would, if it weren't completely on the other side of the room, I would go get my Wrigley Field 100th anniversary helmet Sunday that I have on the shelf behind me. That was the first time I visited Wrigley, was on their 100th anniversary.
Fantastic.
Cool.
So,
but we could talk baseball all day long. But Millward, I know you've got some updates for us. We just had a board meeting recently, so why don't you start with that?
Well, sure. Thank you. It was my first board meeting with our wonderful, diverse board of directors, and a number of very exciting and consequential things were kind of decided on at that meeting. And of course, every board meeting, there's the kind of usual annual business stuff. So, for instance, we approved our tax returns and decided to go ahead and put out an RFP for some investment advisors, and did other things like approving updates to the National Awards Manual, the Advisory Council and Community Manuals. And sometimes those things seem kind of like they're just tedious, grinded out kinds of facets of being a board member. But they're actually, all of those little details are really important because they kind of comprise what's under the hood, and what makes the engine run. So they really are necessary that we attend to these things to get the organization where we want it to go. And so the board kind of took care of that important business. One of the things that we did was have Emily Jacobs come in and do kind of an update on where we are with all of this amazing work, this long-running work to revise the certification programs to adapt to the new standards that were adopted. And this is kind of the rubber hits the road um, phase of where the board is right now, because they approved a very ambitious new strategic plan back in the fall. And this meeting was where we kind of figure out, okay, now how are we going to implement the strategic plan? So one of the engines, so to speak, to do that is by putting together task forces and committees, figuring out who's interested in leading what kind of portions of the plan, how we're going to work with the staff. So that's very exciting to me, that we're now kind of really getting going on implementation, kind of the implementation phase. And in terms of task forces, like one example, there's a number of them, but one that I'm really excited about in particular is the Student Pipeline Task Force, because it's so important that we work harder to engage students in career opportunities, interpretation, and in the advantages of being part of NAI. So that pipeline task force has some exciting things kind of in the works. And so that's what I was excited about, particularly with this board meeting. And I think everybody shares that enthusiasm going forward.
Millward, as you know, I'm on the board of directors with the Colorado Society of Association Executives, and I hear a lot of, I work with a lot of folks in that group, and you hear a lot of horror stories about organizations where staff and board don't get along, or just don't coexist well, or have differing opinions on the roles of boards, or there's a lot of ways that a relationship could go wrong with a board and a staff, or a board and the organization at large. And I would say with NAI, we are very lucky to have a really productive, strong working relationship with our board. Really engaged members who care about the field and care about the organization, and I've really enjoyed the positive atmosphere of the working relationship that we have with our board. This was your first full meeting. Did you have well, obviously you can only answer this question one way, but what was your feeling after the board meeting in terms of where the organization is going?
Well, I think you really nailed it, Paul. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, the important thing is that we're a team, right? We're a unified team, and everyone's passionate about the mission, and that's really can kind of propel you forward and carry you forward. And I think everybody senses what I've been kind of talking a lot about since I've been here, which is a sense of excitement and optimism. That this is going to be a kind of a new day for interpretation that's really going to spotlight what an important impact that we can have on the world as we kind of emerge into the post-pandemic kind of new world. So yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. But there's some other things going on that I'm excited about. I can share with you really quickly. I've been working really hard to kind of establish partnerships and advance partnerships. It's such an important part of how we kind of move the ball forward. So very close. Maybe at a subsequent S&P, I can actually let the cat out of the bag about this, but very close to announcing a partnership that I think is really going to increase opportunities for Native Americans and Indigenous people to be able to enter this field. And it'll be also a way that we can learn how to kind of make our certification programs more responsive to kind of the way that stories are told by Native Americans about their own worlds and their own heritage. So there's a little teaser for you, but we're getting very close to announcing a partnership there. And really excited, speaking of kind of the justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility work, that Parker McMullen Bushman is going to be doing a DEI training for the board at our next meeting, which will hopefully be in person here in Fort Collins at the national headquarters in August. So really looking forward to that too. And then finally, I'd mention, really have been happy that the board has arranged all of these meet and greets with all of the regions during their spring workshops. We've done a number of those and have, I think, only one left to do here in a couple of weeks. I think the Sunny Southeast workshop. But it's been a great opportunity for the members who are part of those regions to kind of get to see and meet the board and then just kind of hear what's on our minds and how we support the work that's being done at the regional level. So that's a sample of what I'm excited about right now.
That is awesome. Thank you, Millward, so much for joining us as always. And yeah, just do you work for an association? You are wearing many hats.
You knew that was coming.
How was that?
Well, then I'll ask mine one. Since you have a corduroy hat, did you hear about corduroy pillows?
No.
They're making headlines.
Okay, we have to end it right there.
That's it. All right, Paul's cut off here, but
no.
Millward, we always end your segment with a musical theme. So if you were walking up to bat right now, what would your walk-on song be?
Well, I am a big fan of Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I love the song that who's the solo artist who founded what's his name?
ZCR?
The band leader for Creedence. He had a great solo career, and he wrote this wonderful baseball song called Center Field.
Oh, John Fogerty.
John Fogerty. So I would have Center Field play in the background.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Song, what about you? What's your walk-up song?
Mine?
Yeah.
I don't know. Today I'm feeling, you know what? Today I'm feeling a little Iron Maiden. I think I would run to the hills today.
Very nice.
Run to the hills. Gotcha.
Mine, and I've been saying this for many years, my walk-up song would be Don't Let's Start by They Might Be Giants.
Shocker. I'm surprised.
Yeah. And I did, by the way, I went and got it because I want you to see it. Here is my Wrigley Field, 100 years of Wrigley Field Helmet Sunday Cup.
Excellent. Go Cubbies.
And on that, we thank you all for watching another episode of S&P. Thank you, Millward Simpson, Executive Director of National Association for Interpretation. And we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Party on, song. Party on, Millward.
Party on, Paul. Party on Millward.